Let's go over the common problems and solutions for folks that want to get back to the land and their small farm or their homestead, whether it's you want a camping site, whether you want a cabin in the woods, or whether you're going to bug out and go and live in the woods or a van down by the river. Okay, what are the common problems and challenges folks face, and how do you solve them? I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. So, I've been working out on a site for a barn, and I'm just chilling in the woods here, and I'm kind of going through in my head the common excuses, problems, challenges, frustrations that folks write in for the newsletter. So if you're not aware, we have a newsletter, email newsletter. We have a podcast, an audio-only podcast, and we also have the video podcast, which you're watching right now. And so I get these emails, I get people writing in, and they tell me I can't afford to start a small farm. And it's true, a small farm can cost millions of dollars to start up. It could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to acquire land. 134 acres, just 20 minutes south of here, is $734,000. 134 acres of farmland. There's no house on it. $734,000. It's a rich man's game. There's a reason Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and these people are buying up land, because they're not making any more of it. But the inflated prices, mineral rights, there's a lot of ways to make money from your land. And we can talk about that in another program. But you might be saying you don't have the money to start a homestead. Typical home costs $255 a square foot to finish. Okay, now I know a lot of you folks are saying, well, you're going to build your own home, you're going to natural build. That's great. But if you're going to build a normal stick-built home, what most people consider normal, what a building inspector will not have a problem with, it's going to be $255 per finished square foot. That's your appliances, that's everything ready to move in. And so a 1,000 square foot house is $255,000. With inflation and things like that going on, I understand you may not be able to afford a home. Let's play a little game. Let's say everything goes bad, everything goes wrong, you lose your home, you're financially destitute, you have lost everything, and you're on the streets in a rural community. Okay? Now in a city it's a little harder, but in a rural community, what would your living conditions look like? Well, I know a lot of folks, they say they want to bug out, they're survivalists, they're outdoorsmen, and then they are afraid of not being able to afford to build their homestead. They're afraid they're not able to afford to get started. But any piece of land, 3 to 5 acres, with an occupancy permit, whether it's an existing home or an RV, travel trailer, or a tent in the woods, that's where you would be if you could not afford anything. So there's a problem-solving technique that I teach at another time that is looking at the extremes of a condition. I can't afford to build a homestead. The extreme to that is I have no money, I can't do anything, I have no place to live. There's some place in between the two that is your balance point where you can start your homestead or your small farm. So, could you be a tenant on someone else's farm? Okay, so you got to have a place to live. You rent a house where you can work on that farm and get started in farming. Is there a farmer who's aging out? The typical farmer today is over 65 years old. Most of the farmers I know are in their 70s, 80s, 80 years old, some of them. Could you join a farmer in a partnership to help them transition their farm to you as a managing operator? Okay. Could you join a cooperative where you could use less land and then take all your goods are wholesaled to the cooperative, and then the cooperative takes it to market? See, it's an excuse to say you don't have the money. Maybe you don't feel like you have the money to educate yourself. Well, can you afford a $25 book? There's a lot of really good books out there. Can you afford to volunteer somewhere, gain the skills necessary to clarify your dream, to find the dream you could afford? Or if you're looking at the extremes, could you live in a van down by the river and just get started on any piece of property? Now, yes, it would be best to buy a piece of property. However, if you can get any piece of property that is zoned agricultural, and especially one that has vacant land around it, then you can get a foothold and then start expanding from there. In that case, you want to use temporary buildings. So the travel trailer, the campsite, that's a real thing. Now, if you're saying this is not something for you, you don't want to do it, that's okay. You could live in town and drive out to your property and start farming. You could rent someone else's property. Again, I'm about solutions. I'm not about excuses. And when someone says, I can't afford to get started, I usually think, if it's that important for you to bring it up, you cannot afford to wait, because you're probably concerned about inflation. You're likely concerned about food security. You're likely want better, higher quality food. You want that connection and community. So let's get started. Now, another point that a lot of people bring up as a concern, they say, I'm working my day job, and when I retire, I want to have a homestead. And then they go on about how much lifestyle would be different, how they wouldn't want to go on vacation because their home would be like a vacation. They'd have a little better with their health. And you guys know I talk a lot about the value of sleep, stress management, and ultimately improving your health. And being out in the outdoors is an excellent way of doing that. And so, hiking, biking, this trail that I'm on right now, just chilling out talking to you guys, is perfect for biking, perfect for hiking. But again, there's little camping nooks here and there, so you can camp as well. My point being is, do you really have to wait till after you retire to get started? So the first thing is by the time you retire, the game is going to be different. Okay, land's going to be more expensive. It tends to go up in price over time. You may not have the financial security to do that, and you may end up dying with a dream inside you that's not going to happen. The solution for that is to start transitioning into remote work, and then find some way to either volunteer or participate in your existing community to gain the skills necessary. Now, you might take a vacation to go learn survival skills. You might take a vacation to learn natural building. You might take a vacation to learn some aspect of that future dream so that day one, when you retire, you're ready to go. However, what we teach here is even to go further and practice what's called intentional thrift, so that you can get more of the money you're earning into investments, so that you can now have that residual income, so that when you have like a $100,000 nest egg or $200,000 nest egg, you can go off and start without waiting till retirement. Now, realistically, you need millions of dollars in retirement. Most of my subscribers are six-figure earners. Most of my subscribers are living paycheck to paycheck, even though they're six-figure earners, because they haven't taken to heart that intentional thrift, which is living far within your means and investing the rest. Now, we talk more about that in the Sustainable Wealth Secrets newsletter, which is a different thing that I do for a larger audience. But if you're interested in homesteading, if you're interested in a smart farm, you have to understand the farm will be expensive, but you don't need to have money to afford it. And it will be time consuming, but you don't need to be retired to enjoy it. And again, it starts as an incremental approach. Now, this next thing I hear a lot is a problem that I had. So when I grew up, I had goats, chickens, and stuff like that, but my dad primarily maintained them. And as a kid, I just did chores. So I understand the chores part of taking care of animals, but as far as inoculations, as far as health and wellness, like worming inoculations, not this mRNA stuff they're going to put in cows, but ultimately the nuances of animal husbandry is not a skill that I have. And you might be saying, well, do I have to have animals on a homestead? Well, I just finished up a video where we talked about trail maintenance and leveraging animals for the trail maintenance rather than having to come out here and physically maintain the trails. Now, you're still going to have to physically maintain the trails, but you'll be doing it on a more consistent basis because the animals set up the obligation as well as a output for the property while minimizing your input. So I'm not out here with a chainsaw. I'm not out here with a bunch of tools. I'll have goats and stuff doing most of that work for me. And all I got to do is move fencing and things like that. So I hear a lot of times people say they don't have the animal skills, and that's okay. So let me address that in two parts. Do you need to have animals to be on a homestead? Not necessarily. We'll talk about that. And then the animal husbandry. How do you get those skills? Because when I was in 4-H, I was a kid. So I didn't get all those skills in 4-H. It was very enjoyable, by the way, and I kind of missed it. That's why I'm going back to that kind of ag environment. But here's the point. Do you have to have animals for your homestead? Well, I think it's really up to you, but there are categories of animals. So you're going to have companion animals like dogs, maybe cats. I don't really like cats, but I like the dogs. Companion animals, pets. That's fine. Minimal number of pets when possible. You're going to have working animals. So that could be a dog that actually helps you. Maybe you're into hunting and you got hounds that are running. You've got a dog that helps you, maybe carries a little pack with you and goes out hunting. That's kind of a bridge from companion to working, but ultimately that animal serves a purpose and is engaged with you when it comes to managing the property. So, because pets can get bored, but a farm animal, farm dog, not some hounds you got chained up out back, but an animal that's part of the team is valuable both for your health, your well-being, and ultimately for the animal's well-being. Now when it comes to the day-to-day activities, you can have a large garden, a Zone 1 garden. Permaculture Zone 1 is up near the house. You can have vegetables. You can definitely grow as many vegetables as you need to get a general amount of calories. But the volume of vegetables necessary to get the calories that you need for consistent health is significant. So are you going to get equipment? Are you going to have to get like a BCS tractor? Are you going to have to get a regular size tractor? Or do you have small livestock animals or appropriate livestock animals that can help you with the gardening? So for example, chickens at the end of season can go scratch up your garden and basically take down all the overgrowth, which you can then compost and then put back out on the garden. Goats, for example, can do something similar. Goats can help you maintain trails. I've talked about that a lot. Goats can help you with overgrown areas so that you don't necessarily need a bush hog. Oh, excuse me, my sinuses are getting there. The last thing is livestock provides a large amount of calories on foot. And what that means is that the animals can be processed as you need them, provide a significant number of calories, and they don't have to be your livestock. They could be deer in the woods. They could be other types of game animals, turkeys. I saw a bunch of rabbits this morning, which is pretty exciting. You can have animals that you hunt, but you can also have basic livestock like chickens, ducks, goats, piggies, all kinds of things like that, sheep. And I think they play a necessary role because they provide the calorie count, they provide labor on the property. Okay, so they help you with tillage, they help you with cleaning up the woods, they help you with processing organic waste from that property, and then also they have a market value. And so you can start generating income on the property. A lot of you folks think that you're going to retire, you're going to go run a farm, but most of you are going to be broke because the operation of a farm costs nearly as much as the establishment of the farm. And now when we take a phased approach, we can spread that out over time. We can cash flow, different things like that. We could talk about that at another episode. But I really truly believe if you care for the animals. Now again, I was vegan for 4 years. I continue to use animal products I already had out of respect for the animal. But ultimately, I ate raw food. And to get to the volume of food I had to eat to get enough calories and enough balanced nutrition. And then again, I do fermentation. I do make kefir and kombucha and sauerkraut and fermented vegetables and stuff. And we can teach you some of that, by the way. If you're interested in a fermentation class, definitely leave your comments below and we'll do a fermentation class on site. That is something I truly enjoy. Kefir, making cheeses, that kind of thing. Simple cheeses, butters, that kind of thing. But where does the milk come from? Now, you can partner with a local farm. You don't have to own your own farm animals. You can partner with a local farm. You can buy local. You can be in a community. Maybe you trade vegetables. But I really do think that some kind of livestock is important. You just have to be careful that we don't get that map all switched around. Remember I said pets, working animals, and livestock. Make sure you don't get that flipped around where your livestock are your pets. None of the animals are working, and then ultimately you're spending a lot of money in feed running a petting zoo. But again, the manures of the animals will feed your garden. It minimizes the inputs, and then you get a lot of results out of it. The last question a lot of folks have, and I'm going to be sensitive about this one. So a lot of my subscribers sitting in an office space, dreaming about being outdoors. They're stuck indoors, and they're dreaming about outdoors. One of the reasons that I show up in my work clothes to do videos for you on Prosperity Homestead is because if I dressed my regular way or my office way or my church clothes, you wouldn't think I actually do any work. Okay, because remember, I'm teaching you how to manage projects. I'm teaching you how to cooperate so that you have less work. I sound really lazy, but again, that's part of the intentional thrift, where we're not going to put more resources in that are necessary to create the results that we're looking for, and that we're going to calibrate our inputs and outputs so that we maximize outputs while minimizing inputs. In the long run, farming is dirty and dangerous work. And if you don't get experience with it, you could be horribly disappointed. So for example, there's a place in this community that is going to teach natural building methods. And they're not teaching it next week. They might be teaching it from a year from now. In order to get there, there's sawmill work. There's excavation work. There's work. And a lot of folks that watch the YouTube videos, I don't want to discourage you. There's probably going to be a big drop off in viewership right here. I want you to understand that if you're spending money to go to a gym, you could be getting just as fit working on your farm or working on somebody else's farm. If you are buying organic food and paying a premium price for it, you can get food that is just as good, plus the vitamin D, plus the infrared thermal radiation that recharges your cells, plus the enjoyment of being out here and getting that fresh air. And even though the allergies are bad at times, I am better off for getting out in nature. I feel energetic. I was out there working, and my back was hurting and everything. I did a little bit of qigong, this kind of thing. By the way, we're going to start some meditation classes here. We're going to start little karate classes. You may not know, I got a black belt in Shonryu Orthodox Matsumora Karate. I digress. But basically, if you don't think you have the money, if you don't think you have the time, if you don't think you have the skills, if you don't think you are going to be able to do this, but you still want to have a small farm or a homestead, there are ways to do it. There's tiny house living. There's you could rough it in the woods if you really wanted to for the weekend as an adventure. You can work on somebody else's farm. There's so many things. There's so many options. And if you'd like a list of these options, you're going to visit www.prosperityhomestead.org. Go to the contact page and ask your homestead questions. Maybe you got an objection or concern, frustration, fear that you haven't discussed here, and you'd like to share it with me. If it's okay to use your name and stuff, you let me know, and I'll actually read it off the paper. But the key is, I want to make sure that you got no excuses. Natural systems, outdoor living, get back in touch with nature. Hey, if I wasn't going to go home and take a shower, I'd have my feet, my boots off, walking on the ground. See, I'm not really that far. I'm not in the middle of nowhere. There's aircraft going over top, and then you can hear there's a highway nearby. It doesn't have to be perfect to get started. You just got to get started. It starts with education. It starts with understanding. It starts with that paper plan, and we can help you with all this stuff. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Visit me at www.prosperityhomestead.org. Ask your questions on the contact page. You can like and subscribe if you really want to, but if you want authentic, insightful, and useful resources to help you start your small farm, homestead, or estate, in 12 months or less, we can have you on the property, enjoying that lifestyle without impacting your income, without changing things. We're just plussing your lifestyle, but you'll be in an environment where you can have greater financial security, greater food security, greater physical security as you enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness despite all that goes on in the economy. Again, I'm Justin Hitt, and I'm going to leave you with that. I was hoping to have the birds close me out, but I'm done. I'm done. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next podcast.